Town of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals agenda, Tuesday, October 24th, 2017. Convening at 7:30, Monroe Senior Center, 101 Mine Road, Monroe, New York. You can rise to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We're gonna first review the minutes that we have to approve.
I put them down on the bottom.
Okay, we'll do that first. Be over the. Maybe Abe is gonna arrive meanwhile.
Okay.
This is this.
Both sets.
Do have July and August.
Any comment?
A lot of detail.
Any comments on the minutes?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's done. Okay, now we'll do number 2 on the agenda, public hearing. A Sutherland area variance located 695 Lakes Road, section 29, block 1, lot 56, owner Daniel Sutherland. Proposed garage to be 19 foot in height versus code maximum height of 15. Can you state your name and address?
My name is Dan Sutherland, 695 Lakes Road.
Okay, you're here tonight for?
Here tonight to apply for a variance for a garage. I already got approved for a the exemption from the building moratorium. So my
Okay.
next step is to apply for a variance because the maximum height is 15 feet. And due to the height of my truck, it requires a 19-foot tall building.
I see.
The reason for the garage is because to comply with town code, any commercial vehicle over half a ton, which is basically any commercial vehicle, needs to be enclosed in a building. So to comply with that, I'm building a garage.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a new construction.
Yes,
It's not
it's
modifying an existing.
it's going to just be on the side of my house, if approved. It would be on the side of my house, and it would be one of those steel buildings that you see all over. It's like a carport.
Prefab.
It'll prefab, basically. They put it up in a day.
Okay.
Now, did you do the mailing on this?
I did, yes.
You have the receipts,
I handed them in, yes.
You already turned them in to me.
and it was public notice?
Yep, it was
Yes.
in the newspaper and it was published at the town hall and in Village Hall.
Okay. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on this case, on this matter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody in the public that would say any comments on this matter? No. Okay. Any questions from the members?
Yeah, I just trying to get some background. So this is your work vehicle?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a boom truck.
Okay.
It's for lifting stuff. It's 13 feet tall. I've been at the house for 6 years. There was never a problem until one of the neighbors, who chooses to not talk to anyone around us, just decided to make a complaint about the truck being there. But it had been there for 6 years prior, and no other neighbors have a problem with it. He just doesn't get along with anybody around us, and he's now selling his house and moving, but I still have to comply now. It's been brought to their attention. I didn't want to build a garage. I was fine with it just parked in the driveway, but now I have to comply.
Right. And so the height of the truck just doesn't go with the standard 15, well, not standard, but
Well, the problem is the peak. The peak of the building puts me over. In order to put a door, there has to be a flat part on the top where the door rolls up.
right.
And then there has to be the pitch. The pitch is what puts me above the 15 feet, 'cause the truck is 13 feet. So I need that 2 feet just for pitch.
Okay.
And my house is 30 feet tall. It's not going to look out of place. It's going to actually, I'm going to make it look good because my house looks good. It's not like I'm going to just throw it in the side of the yard and ruin the neighborhood. I'm going to actually make it look like part of the house, color-wise, and make it look good.
Okay.
No other neighbors have a problem with it except the one who's moving, and I don't see him here.
So yeah, the only reason I'm asking this is one of the things we need to do is to see, is there any other way you can, any viable way to, either comply or come closer to complying? I mean, this isn't, it's 4 feet small, shorter than your house, but,
Right.
you kind of need to go down that.
Another
That
way
road.
to build it?
Yeah, if there's,
I've thought of every way I can think of, and being that the boom is in the center of the truck, I could essentially comply. I could make it 15 feet with the pitch, and the boom would slide right in. But after speaking with the building inspector, I said, what constitutes a door? What's the definition of a door? Because it's required to be enclosed. I said, I can enclose it and be within the 15-foot limit. If I use, it's a roll-up tarp door. It basically hangs
Right.
down, and you roll it sideways, and
I
it
see.
opens the door. And I was willing to do that, and he said, no, it can't be that. I said, well, I'm just looking for clarification on the definition of a door, because to me that's a door. It's enclosed. And he said, no. I said, well, then does it have to be a metal door? And I didn't get
No,
The answer I seemed to get from him was that it
a
needs to
roll-up
be
makes more sense. That's like a finished rather.
So I'm okay with that if he says it needs to be a roll-up, but I just need the extra height to fit it.
Okay.
Does, so this is the survey that we're going on?
That's my survey, yeah.
The way that it's illustrated on this, do we have any issues now with setback? I see that it's 10 feet from the property line. We would be creating another issue for variance by putting it there?
No. I checked with the building inspector on the setback requirements and I complied.
Yeah, for the SR20, I think that's okay. I think for the SR20, that's okay.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Robert, do you know?
No, I'm looking at the map he presented. He's got the zoning data on there, but this is from, so what year the data is being taken from.
Right here.
Yeah, that's the filed map from 1885.
There is a letter from the building inspector in your packet as well.
That's right here. Yeah, this, it's like just before, there's this, and then there's this, looks like a transcript, and then right here. So it's, Ben Maldonado, and he's talking about, this is the one, variance.
Just on, members, just on this topic, if you grant the variance for the height, and it goes back to the building department for a building permit, and on this sketch with the 10-foot side yard, if it violates the zoning code, the building inspector won't issue the building permit. It'll send
Right.
it back for another
So-
variance.
Right,
So
so,
the applicant's apparently aware of that.
Right.
So I don't know that you need to look at that any further.
right. Okay.
And you said it's below the sight line of your current house, of the main structure?
Yes, the high part of the house. The house has multiple levels, and the highest part will be quite a bit higher still. And I also moved it off of the house as much as possible, so that it didn't create a narrow alley, which wouldn't look right and kind of would restrict my use of the property. So I scooted it down as far as I could, and still to keep the setback. I thought that would basically, keep the property the best and appearance-wise as well. I spent a lot of time out there looking at it and trying to figure out the best way,
Right.
and this was really the best thing I could come up with.
Is this where the truck is normally parked?
Yes,
In that
it is.
spot?
It is,
That's
yes.
it as well?
And then, if I sell the house, I move, and just so that, it wouldn't appear that there's gonna be now a big garage that nobody's gonna want. It's an RV garage, so it basically would serve a good purpose for somebody else.
Right.
Like if I sell the truck someday, I might put an RV in it. It would serve multiple purposes.
Right, sole purpose isn't for a boom truck, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
yes.
And there's no plumbing or anything in there?
No
right?
plumbing, no.
Electricity, I assume?
I would put electric, yes. And I don't know yet if I want to put a concrete floor or not. I may just do gravel, depending on the final cost of the garage. I'm not sure yet.
But that wasn't a requirement.
It's not, No.
And just asking, you use this truck for your employment, I mean,
I do.
your
It's
line
a-
of work?
I use it for business, yes.
Okay,
It's not, I'm not running a business so much out of my, out of the site. It's
Right.
a residential area. I just park the truck there.
right,
But, yeah, it is, it's for profit.
right.
So there's no customers in visit the
No.
site, right?
No, there's no, it's not a business. It's not in any way set up as a business. I don't even write off any part of the house as a business.
Basically, you want a place to park your work truck.
That's all it is. It's just easy to walk out in the morning and start it there than to drive somewhere.
Mr. Sutherland, a couple of items. The structure that you're proposing, the plans have been submitted to the building department, is that
No,
right?
I have not.
They have not.
I have not.
Do you know what the size of the garage is going to be?
I believe I indicated 16 by 44. 46, 16 by 46.
Yeah, that's what this sketch says.
16 by 46 and 19 feet high. If this board were to grant the variance, would it be acceptable to you if it was conditioned upon the garage not being enlarged, rebuilt, or relocated except in conformity with the bulk area requirements? That would be the zoning ordinance anyway.
My only thing is that I would like the option to maybe make it 2 feet wider. I still don't know yet, because right now the truck is 10 feet wide with the mirrors. I don't know how much room there's going to be required for the door. If the door needs more room, I may have to make the garage 2 feet wider.
All right.
So would it be possible for you to limit me to extending the width by 2 feet?
That's going to change your variance application to
would.
16 feet to 18 feet by 46.
Okay,
And it may also change the location of the proposed garage and the setbacks from the house and the side yard that you've shown on the plan.
it wouldn't affect anything because I can make the garage go towards the house, which increases the setbacks because the property goes on an angle. So if you're looking at the garage, if I
It
make
could be
it go,
brought, it could be brought forward, I suppose. is
Yeah,
what
you got
you're
enough
saying.
room.
there's definitely enough room to move it. Originally, I was going to make
Then it would still be in conformity with the bulk area requirements, so that proposal would not violate that as a condition. The second thing is whether or not there can be a second story on the structure. Was your proposal to use the second floor of this building?
No,
And will it be heated?
no,
And is there any proposal to use it as living space?
no.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on this issue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll go through. We need to see kind of.
At least motion to declare yourselves lead agency.
I would like to make a motion to declare ourselves as leading agency for this matter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on this application, this would appear to be an unlisted type action requiring the board to review the short form EAF that has been submitted by the applicant. If you like, I can summarize that document. We have a part 1 where the applicant's name of the action of the project is called the Sutherland Garage at 695 Lakes Road, Monroe. The applicant's Mr. Sutherland. His address, phone number, email are on the document. Number 1, does the action only involve legislative adoption of plan, local law, ordinance, etc.? The answer is no, that would be correct. 2, does the proposed action require permit approval or funding from any other government agency? This is answered yes, as the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Monroe Building Permit. The action before this board is actually the variance itself, and so that would be the only permit required as a result of this project. So the answer actually should be answered no. So, Noreen, on your official copy of the short form EAF, can you change that to a no answer instead of a yes answer?
Yes, I did.
3A, total acreage is shown of the site of the action is 1.563 acres, 0.05 to be disturbed. I take it you took those numbers from the survey that you have?
Well, I calculated it by the square footage of the garage, and then I added approximately 15 feet around the building for what will be disturbed, and then based that on an acre.
Number 4, the land uses that are on or adjoining are residential and a fire department. 5 is the action of permitted use under the zoning regulation. Yes. Consistent with adopted comprehensive plan. Yes. 6 is the action consists of the predominant character of existing built or natural landscapes. Answered yes. 7 is the site of the proposed action located in or does it adjoin a listed state-listed critical environmental area? Answered no. 8A, will the action result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels? No. Are public transportation services available at or near the site? No. And C, are any pedestrian accommodations or bicycle routes available on or near the site? Also answered no. 9, does the action meet or exceed the state energy code requirements? Answered yes. 10, will the action connect to an existing public or private water supply? Answered no, no water is needed. Connected to an existing wastewater utility? Also answered no, none needed. 12A, does the site contain a structure listed on either the state or national register of historic places? No. And B, is the action located in an archaeological sensitive area? Also answered no. 13A, does any portion of the site of the proposed action or lands adjoining it contain wetlands or other water bodies regulated? Answered no. And B, would the action physically alter or encroach into any existing wetlands or water bodies? Answered no. 14, he identifies as suburban being the typical habitat types that occur on or are likely found on the site. 15, does the site of the proposed action containing species of animal or associated habitats listed by state or federal government as threatened or endangered? That's answered no. 16, is the site located in a 100-year floodplain? No. 17, will the proposed action create stormwater discharge either from point or non-point sources? Also answered no. 18, does the action include construction or other activities that result in the impoundment of water or other liquids? Answered no. 19, has the site of the proposed action or adjoining property been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? That is answered no. 20, has the site of the proposed action or adjoining property been the subject of remediation, ongoing or completed for hazardous waste? Also answered no. Bears the name and signature of the applicant as dated September 22nd, 2017. The part 2 of this form is to be answered by the board. The first question, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? If it's no, the first box is checked off. First box?
Yes.
2, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? If the answer is no, it's the first box, or if it's a small impact, it'd also be the first box.
First box.
First box. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
First box.
No.
No.
Will the action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways? No. Will the action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
First box. 7, will the proposed action impact existing A, public or private water supplies?
No.
And B, public or private wastewater treatment utilities? 8, will the action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
Will the action result in an adverse change to natural resources?
No.
10, will the action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
Nope.
No.
11, will the action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
Mr. Chairman, based upon those answers of this board, there could be a motion to, a resolution, I'm sorry, that the project will not cause any significant adverse environmental effects, and therefore a negative declaration could be issued.
I make a motion to clear negative declaration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The board has received a 239 determination letter from the Orange County Department of Planning dated October 19th, with the county recommendation being that this is a matter for local determination. Therefore, no special vote of the board is required.
That means it's okay with the council.
Mr. Chairman, this board on this application for an area variance is required to examine the 5 factors. The first one being whether or not an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance as shown.
No.
Is it the board's determination on this
No.
that no
No.
undesirable changes will be produced? All right. Second, the need for the variance, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for him to pursue other than an area variance.
No.
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 The applicant tried already to do whatever he can. In order shouldn't need it. So we think that he has no choice only by taking the variance.
All right. Number 3, this is the substantial nature of the variance requested, whether the requested area variance is substantial.
Yes.
No.
No, it's 4 foot.
It's a 4-foot variance.
And it's below the peak of the house.
So is it the board's feeling that it is not substantial?
It's not.
4, the adverse physical and environmental effects, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district.
Nope.
No.
And lastly, the self-created difficulty, whether the alleged difficulty is self-created, which considerations shall be relevant to the decision of the board but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. I would suggest to you that this is a self-created hardship and
Yes.
that the truck is there at the at the request or the action of the applicant, but that finding is not determinative of the variance to be granted or not granted.
But I agree.
It's a yes, yeah.
All right. Mr. Chairman, you can call the question if you wish.
Okay.
The motion could be in the form of a motion to grant the variance as requested by the applicant for a 19-foot height variance with any conditions that you might think are appropriate. I might suggest to the board that the 4 items that I mentioned, 1, that the structure may not be enlarged, rebuilt, or relocated except in conformity with the bulk area requirements might be a condition. The second one might be that the second story of the structure is not to be occupied space. The third one, that the structure will not be heated. The fourth one, that the structure will not be used as living space. And lastly, that the applicant is to pay all fees prior to the issuance of any building permit or certificate of occupancy or use for the variance as granted. If a member wishes to adopt that as a motion to approve the variance, they could do so and then call for a second and then call the question.
I'd make a motion to impose those conditions, as Robert described.
Besides, if he needs the 2 feet for making it wider that he asked for. When you put the not making it bigger,
The first item.
the first item.
Yeah, conforming with the bulk area requirements would meet that.
Yes.
But change it a little bit, the wording on that.
That it could not be enlarged, rebuilt, or relocated except in conformity with the bulk area requirements, and including an increase
Two additional
in the
feet
width to up to 18 feet.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Okay, I think everything is written down clearly, right? So I would like to make a motion to grant the variance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
That was easy.
All right.
Is that all?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good night.
I
Right.
really appreciate it. Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Take care now.
Thank you.
You have to, your post office, this one is not yours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you can just give it back to your mail lady so she can get it to the right party. Okay? And then you'll get a letter from us, and then from there you have to go see Ben. All right? We probably by the end of next week you should have it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good
Good
evening.
night.
Okay.
Do old business or new business?
He's not.
On the agenda there.
New business first.
That's there.
I'm not sure if Campbell's here. I don't see the lawyer. But I don't know who the man is in the back row. I've never seen him before.
Must be a fan.
Could be her husband. I don't know. I've never seen him.
No, I've seen
Okay, we're gonna alter a little bit the agenda. We're gonna do Lakeside, Monroe Lakeside first.
We want to get rid of them.
Yeah. Good evening. Okay. We're just gonna go over the old, yes, we're here about the sign, right?
Correct.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this matter was introduced to the board on August 22nd. A public meeting was opened on September 27th and also closed that evening pending receipt of the Orange County Department of Planning 239 referral letter. That letter has now been received. It's dated October 3rd, and that county recommends or sets forth that this is also a matter for local determination. Therefore, no special vote of the board is required.
Okay, so I think, did we grant the variance?
No, a negative declaration was issued back on September 22nd. The public hearing was closed. The board had not at that point, I believe, gone through the 5 factors.
Okay, so we'll do it now.
So if you would like to do that this evening, I can
Yes.
lead or help the board through it. The first of the 5 factors on this application is an undesirable change or detriment to nearby properties. Well, the question is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance for this sign.
No.
No.
Secondly, is the need for the variance. The question is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance.
No.
No.
Third question is the substantial nature of the variance granted, requested, and the question is whether the requested area variance is substantial. On this question, I would suggest to you that the variance is one for 29 feet, the setback requirement being 30, therefore would appear to be substantial. However, the variance must be viewed in the context of the extent of the variation from the existing conditions, and the focus of the board's inquiry should be upon the character of the neighborhood.
It's substantial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the substantial nature of the variance would prohibit you from granting the application?
No.
The fourth question is the adverse physical and environmental effects. The question is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the zoning district.
No.
No.
And the fifth question is self-created difficulty. The question is whether the alleged difficulty is self-created, which considerations shall be relevant to your decision but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. I might suggest to you that this is a self-created hardship because the sign and its placement is at the request of the applicant, but that determination would not be fatal to this particular application for an area variance.
Self-created.
Yes.
Okay. That does complete the application process, Mr. Chairman. At this time, you could entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance for this matter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The variance has been granted. Good luck.
Gentlemen, thank you all for your time. We do
Hope
appreciate
to see
it.
a nice sign up there.
You guys will love it. I promise you that.
What,
Thanks for all your work.
Fourth time is a charm, right?
Fourth time's a charm.
Fourth time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good luck.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay, anybody here for Campbell? Okay, we'll take the new business, Congregation Beth Aria, located 230 Mountain View Drive, Section 43-Block 2-Lot 5. Owner Rabbi Herschel Taub, Joel Mann, representative, seeking 3 area variance for expansion of an existing single-family residence, adding addition to be used as a synagogue. Mr. Mann, we're not going to vote tonight on this. We'll just explain what we have tonight in front of us.
I was expecting they've been pushed to the last that I will be granted tonight a variance. And it's done. Anyway, my name is Joel Mann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Rabbi Herschel Taub. There's an existing shul in this building. It's going on for over about 30 years. The rabbi lives there from 30 years. I think he purchased the property in 1985. The existing shul is in the basement, occupying the full basement of the existing unit. The rabbi lives upstairs. Later on, they built an addition to the house. Basically, it's including a mikveh, and above that, there's a big room for the rabbi's needs, basically a sukkah. Now, since going through the years, the rabbi is getting older, and actually the shul actually is very run down. It's a low ceiling. Went through that for years, but now it's very hard to go on. Basically, the area throughout the whole area has been changed during that 30 years, and more members came to that neighborhood. So we're proposing here an addition from approximate 2,000 square feet. The existing shul is about 1,400 square feet, so this will be 2,000 square feet addition to the back of the existing house. Now, this property is a corner property and has roads from 3 sides. It's only neighboring one lot. Actually, it's neighboring 2 lots on the left side. So one is to Irene Drive and the other one is to Mountain View Drive. The proposed addition is to the back to Irene Drive, actually not to the neighbors. And even though it will be to the neighbor side, actually they all have a benefit from that shul. They're all supporting it and they're all before that, they're using it. So the problem with that property is that looking on usually you have a property, a square, or even it's rectangle. You have a front setback, you have a rear yard, and then you have 2 side yards, 30 and 35 feet. Here, since we have 3 sides roads, the building envelope is smaller than similar lots in that area. Most of the lots in that area are 40,000 square feet plus minus, and that's basically R1, and that's the required size for that lot. So this lot, since it's a corner, we're losing let's say approximate 15 feet from the setbacks. We need the 50 feet all the way around. So proposing that addition and to have everything, all the needs for necessary for the shul and the way it's need to be built, we are encroaching into the setbacks at one corner with about I think it's about 7 feet.
It's 41.4. That's what it says.
So yeah, so it's
And
close
the other
close
one
to
is-
10, basically close to 10 feet. So there will still be. It's not a full. Actually, since it's not a full addition, since the property line goes with the, it's a round property line. It's basically the corners were sticking out from the setback, and that's one variance requested there. The second variance is for actually it's two corners, so I don't know, it's basically two variances for the two corners. The next variance is for the parking. Currently there is 7 parking spaces on the site, and basically according to the need there is a need for 2 spaces for the single family, leaving about 5 parking spaces for the shul. We're proposing to add the most possible parking, reasonable parking on the property. It's a sloped side, so we try to make it fit. It will need a couple of retaining walls there. What's being designed, we have a civil engineer designing that. It will make sense and work with the drainage and all the grading. And the other area where we're left is basically a septic area, and then the front where there's basically leaving some privacy for the rabbi for his use where his entrance is. So we're here for that variance. Previously the board in the history gave a couple similar type, even more greater variances than that on religious shuls, and for parking variance and setback and heights. Actually, we're not seeking a height variance here. The proposed addition will be 1 floor with a basement. The basement will have about 2 lecture rooms being used as provided. We have attached. I'm not sure if the board has the narrative. Was sent to the chair later on. Was
Yeah,
not
it's in the
submitted
pack.
together with the package. Oh, so you have the narrative also. This is the plans, but it was emailed last week.
I might not have brought that.
Okay, so we'll
Yeah,
actually
if
we
I
have a
stuck it in
month.
the
We have a
package
month
or
till the
not.
next meeting. So I believe that basically explain. And we have the narrative. It was also requested by the building inspector in his letter. I'm not sure. The letter from the building inspector was also we also got just last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if that's in the package from the board members. And basically the narrative is explaining more or less the use of the shul and how it's going to be used, and certainly if the board has any questions, I will try my best to answer that questions.
Just a quick question on the plan. I just want to make sure. So I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing. That's the building envelope and anywhere the building extends outside of that, that's where you're designating as a need for a variance.
You're right.
So I'm looking at this line here.
This is the building envelope.
Right. So that little corner there, that's requiring the variance, and that's requiring it. Okay. And it says approximate septic.
We're working now to get, basically we need this whole area for this first. Actually, the septic is now here. It's going to be relocated in this area.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's not where the addition needs to be. If we didn't want to put the addition here, actually we don't have to say because this is all existing. The only way to get the facts was in this area without getting the minimum into the setback.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
They should have the building department letter in there. That I have.
Okay.
So what's the proposed use of the basement that's existing now?
The basement,
The current shul?
the current shul will be converted basically to the rabbi's private study. During the years, he collected more and more books, and he needs more his privacy. He doesn't have the place anymore in his house. It needs to be extended, so he will occupy the basement. He has doesn't have a big house, just has a lot of he married all his kids already, but they're coming here and there for holidays. So he needs the space upstairs from his existing study. So basically the basement will be his proposed study will be converted. It's stated in the narrative very clear.
Is there any other proposed expansion to the current dwelling?
No. So we have basically it will be a basement and 1 story. Previously I've designed it was like a 20-foot high with a mezzanine, but it's for heating purposes and everything and that we decided to keep the woman's area on the same level as the shul and not do we'll do probably, it's not finalized now, it will be 14 feet high, between 12 and 15 feet high it will be the shul. We don't want to go to 20 feet.
Right, so I see it's built on a grade, so the roof line is below the roof line of the current structure?
Correct.
Right.
And actually we have a deck between the shul and the existing house. There's like a corridor connecting the.
So that I think that was what my next question was going to be. I see here it says existing addition to be reconstructed.
Basically, yes. This is an existing. If you look on the floor plans, on the main floor plan, you can see the lobby.
Okay.
Third page.
So the lobby, above the lobby is going to be the deck. It's now an existing deck, so we'll reconstruct back above that the deck of the rabbi's deck. So the lobby height will probably be 8 or 9 feet, something like that. And then the shul will be a couple feet higher, wherever it's needed for the height of the shul. But it will still, and we're proposing a flat roof on it. So it will be lower than the existing roof line from the existing house, correct? One of the purposes of this deck was also we tried not to cover any existing windows in the rabbi's house. So that way we can save the windows on the upper floor of the rabbi's house.
So, I might be in here, but I'm sure it fluctuates, but do you anticipate, or how much do you anticipate this will increase, like the maximum occupancy of this?
We propose the maximum occupancy, but in fact, this type of shuls is usually being used for neighbors. So
For what? I'm sorry.
for neighbors.
Okay.
Very limited people are coming from other areas to that shul. It's all, and if they're coming, it's only maybe during the week for once or two, but maybe mostly the concept is like this. We are praying, Jewish people are praying the morning and night. They need 10 people that call the minyan. Now, if everyone has different times when he's going to work. So if someone wants to decide one day to walk in 7 or 7:30 or whatever time he wants, he's usually looking for a bigger shul because then you have a minyan wherever you're walking in. So there's 2 big shuls on Garfield Road. There are a couple other big shuls in the entire village, and this serving mostly the purposes for most of the people. This shul is being used mainly the maximum capacities for Saturdays for the neighborhood because we're not driving Shabbos and holidays, and limited use during the week, like there's 1 minyan in the morning, 1 minyan at night. That's it. Maybe 2. That's usually every shul is, and neighborhood shul is different. So it will not exceed. I put in like the maximum amount of people I can anticipate will occupy this this shul. I don't think even it will get to that number. We just want to be on the safe side. So it's.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking,
Yeah.
with the parking and everything, just.
Yeah. And about the parking, we feel during Shabbos, we're not driving. Actually, the parking lot will be empty. And during the week, we believe that the 18 parking spaces will be enough to accommodate the members who will come with a car, because it's also actually the reason we did the 18. I don't think we need the full 18, but I did the maximum I can provide on the property, so I can limit the variance for a smaller variance.
How many parking spaces are there now? About
There's about 7.
there's about 7.
So
Okay.
people are parking. Actually, there's allowed parking on the road. People are parking on the road there. The neighbors doesn't have a problem because they're using it. They want to have the shul in this area. They don't want that the shul should move away because they want to have it in walking distance. So
I'm a bus driver. I would like to see those parking spaces done fast.
Get the cars off the road.
Yeah.
that way is taking off because now it's being used basically in this use, and they want to have the maximum. Now there's only 7 spaces, so if we have 18 at least.
Right.
Mr. Mann, on the prior application, you may recall that if the occupancy is expected to exceed 100 persons, this application will be subject to site
Yes.
plan review. Does your narrative address maximum occupancy?
Yes.
The last time you were here, back in 2015, there was a condition imposed upon that variance that the occupancy would be no greater than 80 persons. What is the number at this time, the maximum occupancy?
I used the same number. It was it was 80 because the main shul was 80, and then we have the women's area 15, so it's 95. Same thing was on that plan, so I don't know why in the variance was only the 80 people. Maybe we didn't count for the women because they're not driving. I don't know.
I don't know, but that was
Yeah.
the number in the
So
prior
that's basically the
variance.
same.
So on this application, are you saying the maximum occupancy will not exceed 95?
Yes.
So Joel, is it the primary purpose? Is it to accommodate more congregants, or is it to create more space for the rabbi?
It's 2 things. It's to create more space for the rabbi and to accommodate the existing congregants during the year, during 30. This was they started the 30 years. There was no change during that 30 years. Looking on the 30 years, there was a change in that neighborhood. 30 years ago, there was not all the houses were occupied by Jewish people. So during that years, it's also tight in space. So, but we're not anticipating that this will grow more than that, because in fact, lately, they opened up 2 new shuls on that same street, up the hill and down the hill. But that's what's happening. If it's growing, people are looking for the Shabbos. This neighborhood shuls basically opening every couple of houses wherever it's needed.
Right.
So
The reason I asked the questions, I know one of the questions we were asked is, can it be accomplished? Can the variance be accomplished through less of a variance, right? So if the primary focus, if there isn't going to be really an increase in congregants or space to accommodate the congregants, can we accomplish giving the rabbi additional space without the proposed structure? To this degree.
because look at the existing, it's as of now the way it was, like I told you, the last 8 years, the place is not. There is no space in the shul anymore. So we need a bigger space for the shul too. It was both. So
Yeah. So it's both.
yeah.
Just one other thing of housekeeping. Noreen, the intercommunity impact form, section 2 is not completed. This is the form that tells us whether or not a 239 referral is required. The answers were left blank.
I just realized, I don't know why it's missing the no's. It's actually, the answer is no for everything, so I will,
If you would, please then fill out the form, and then apparently no 239 referral is required on this application. That was in fact what the board determined from the prior application that was before us, so it's consistent. Let's get the paperwork completed.
Okay.
I have one here with the no's. Is that enough, or you need
No, that's fine.
copies, new copies from
No, I can send the board members a new one. Okay.
I think it was the three missing items. It's the building inspector letter and the narrative, and now the intercommunity forum. So we have all these three now.
I thought I had copied the narrative. I'm sorry, it must be on my desk, because I usually put all the ZBA stuff together in the planning board. I had a lot of piles on my desk today. I had planning board stuff coming in, because today is their ending. But the building inspector's letters with the packets.
Okay.
At this point, if the board is satisfied with the introduction, this matter could be scheduled for public hearing.
Actually, I just said, I'm looking at the, I'm not sure if it's all the same, the stuff, Noreen, you forwarded us, and I noticed there's some attachments that are related to other properties. I'm just wondering why.
There were prior variances granted on this project, and the most recent one, I think, was in 2015 by this board for some different configuration in the construction, maybe actually two. When the front of the structure came
Yes.
before the board, I think that was a
It was
separate
actually
variance
5
application.
requested variances at that time.
And even prior to that time, there's the very first one, I think, goes back to,
This is 2004.
yeah,
Well, it's on the same street and another.
Okay, because I was noticing it was a
Yeah.
different address.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I was just
Just
wondering why it's getting
attached
attached.
as a reference that the board has already, the history of that board.
Oh, okay, it's just,
Yeah.
okay. I just wasn't sure how it
Yep.
applied. Okay.
I think the applicant's trying to argue that similar variances have been granted for
Right.
other similarly situated properties, and he's given you copies of decisions
Okay.
on those
Yeah.
other applications.
Actually, I have another 2. I got another 2, but I didn't have the decisions at that time. There's one other major problem also, what's being fixed now, that getting to the mikveh, you need to walk in through the shul or getting from the outside. So now with the new configuration, we have like an entrance with a lobby, and from the lobby you're getting to the shul and separate to the mikveh. So it's basically more reasonable. It's
Here's the BD person thing. Okay.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Okay, so we're gonna schedule a public hearing for the next month on this. And bring the rest of whatever is still missing.
not everything is submitted actually.
Yeah?
Everything is submitted now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
You
when
gotta
is
do
the
the
next?
meeting.
When is the meeting of the next month?
November 28th is the
November.
next meeting.
Wow. Just after Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Tuesday
Wow.
after Thanksgiving.
Where did it all go? All right.
So I'll get the information from the assessor's office, and I'll call you when I have everything, and you can come pick it up for your mail.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care now.
You too.
No. Okay, what are we doing with Campbell? Tip?
Noreen, the remaining item is the Campbell application. Did you?
This must be Mr. Campbell.
Okay.
I've spoken with Elizabeth. She didn't call me that she wasn't coming, and I didn't realize you were her husband. And I'm like, I think that's him.
So I was filling in.
No problem. You all should have the new survey that they had done in your packets.
Okay.
I didn't realize that I said, that must be him. I don't know who else it could be. No, that's fine.
Yeah, see, we all have name tags.
Okay.
So, Maureen, I know that we requested this to confirm that there was no increase to the existing, to any of the existing structures. Do we have in our packet
The originals you should have. I don't reprint it every month.
So I think I have that.
I mean, I have my folder with me.
Yeah, it was just
Right. Just to confirm that there was, in fact, no increase in structure.
Mr. Chairman, just to bring the board or refresh the board's memory, this matter was opened on August 22nd. The public hearing opened and it was tabled that evening. We needed proof of mailings at that time. On September 27th, the public hearing was reopened and mailings were presented. At that meeting, we did not have the survey for the premises. It was in the process of being prepared. The survey was needed so that the extent of the variances that are needed could be identified by the survey. We've now been given a survey. I don't know if the board members have had a chance to review it. The public hearing is still open. The board still does need to complete the secret review on this matter, and it also needs to go through the 5-factor analysis. But the first order of business would be to try and identify the variances required. And I don't know if we can do that or not. They haven't examined the survey.
Doesn't show any dimensions.
It does state the numbers on there. It doesn't have the lines to show where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, like the 46.2 looks like it's from the house corner to the
Yeah.
property boundary.
Like if you see on your right side, 6.2, 8, 7.6. You got that?
Yeah. Yeah, those are in the legend. They're called out as the offsets.
What's the front scale?
request to specify the variances?
Yeah, but he's only talking about going 14.6 to 7.6, which is really not
On the right side.
7.6 and 6.2.
Yeah.
So this,
Yeah.
that's the nearest one now.
Yeah.
So this is stating what they were asking for back. 22-foot, 6-foot variance. Right rear cottage. Now, what's the actual setback that's required? I'm trying to- It'd be good to have the building envelope on this.
That I just have it identified, I don't, and the building inspector's letter doesn't say what it is. Mr. Gammon, do you know what the side yard setback requirement is in your zoning district?
On the cottage,
Yeah,
setback from the side of the house to the,
what's required under the zoning ordinance? You're showing that you have 6.2 feet from that to the side yard boundary. Do you know off the top of your head what the requirement is?
I don't, I'm sorry.
This is the 30, I think 30, no?
I'm thinking 32, but I don't know. The building inspector doesn't.
Requirement to the edge of the property?
Yeah, like the offset from that rear cottage. In an older document here, it says they're requiring the side yard a variance. They seek a 22-foot 6-inch variance. So that means it's
20 feet
there's
short?
it's 22 feet, 22 and a half
Just
feet
cut it in
short.
half.
Right. No, what I'm saying though, I'm wondering what is it a 30-foot requirement?
I think it's 30.
Yeah, I see what you're
Or-
saying. I'm sorry, I should
Yeah,
have known
yeah.
that. I don't.
I can't remember.
It would appear to be 30 feet. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's what I'm
consistent with what the building inspector has been saying.
Did they sell this back, piece of property? Is that why that's a dirt road going through there? Like originally, was this house built after this one?
His board wouldn't know that. You'd
Yeah.
have better information than that.
Yeah.
I just wonder why it would be like that, I don't know.
So, members, based on the survey that you have in front of you tonight, it appears that the variances being requested is for the right rear house, which I gather is called the cottage, That's 6.2 feet from the side yard boundary. If we be correct that the requirement is for a 30-foot setback, they're seeking the difference in the way of a variance. That would be the first one. The second is a front yard variance for the front house. They're showing that to be 46.2 feet from the front boundary line. The setback requirement is 50 feet, the variance being the difference. And the third one is also for the main house at the front, showing that to be 27 feet from the lands of Babcock. That would also
3 yard, 3 foot. That's only 3 feet variance, right?
That part of the house was built in 1860.
Yeah, the board's aware of that, but the problem here is that you took non-conforming structures and increased their size, resulting in these variances that now would need
I
be.
didn't.
You, right.
I know, I bought it like that. Yeah.
You know what I meant.
Yes, I do. I do.
And whether or not that's a 50-foot requirement or a 30-foot requirement, I don't know.
But it's not front.
Yeah, usually it's spelled out in the building inspector's letter.
Yeah. We had a similar question in the Romano application. You may recall when the shed was located in the middle of that property.
Yeah.
The question before the board was whether or not the neighbor's property line was a front line, a front yard or a side yard requirement. The board overcame the issue by simply centering the proposed stable in the middle of the property and granted the variances as shown on the survey. I don't know if this can be handled in the same way or not.
It's not to the main road.
Yeah, I mean, really, right now, we're just determining how much of a variance and then comparing it to the previous to also just say, yeah, they haven't changed since last time this came before the board. Just don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah. I think the board's interpretation of this would be that that requirement for that front left corner of the house would be 30 feet and being the same side yard setback.
Yes.
And it's 27, so that's a 3 foot variance.
Yeah. The bigger problem is on the right side where you have that big variance there.
Yes.
Yeah. The front yard is also 3.8 variance, which also not too bad.
Yes.
Only problem is on the right side.
How far is the neighbor's home on that adjoining piece to the right?
It's a full acre back there. It's the dirt. This is a dirt road
Okay.
that goes to the properties back here.
And what's on the right side here?
Woods, and then another home. I'd say about 500 feet, 600 feet maybe. Could be another home back there. He's probably 100 yards behind the cottage. I own it.
How is the grade lower or the same?
It's a slight, probably 10%
It's
decline.
towards the right?
There's two grades. There's a grade that, if you're facing the house, there's a slight grade that goes to the right, and a slight grade that goes back.
Yeah.
I believe they were here the last meeting like this. Those people that came.
Yes,
Yeah.
they were. They didn't speak, but they were here, the neighbor.
But
They had any objection? No.
No, she just wanted to make sure there wasn't any repairs or work being done on the smaller house, the cottage.
her biggest fear is the woods. She doesn't want me cutting down the woods. And
In the back?
yeah, all the trees back there. I said, there are trees, but I said I'm not cutting them down. I think that was her concern if I'm building something back there.
Right, she didn't know whether the
trees.
cottage was being extended, and that was
Yeah,
her main
yeah.
concern because that gets closer to where she
I
is.
told her a while ago I wouldn't cut down any more trees. There's only a couple I took out that were dead.
And what's the condition of this house? Livable?
Yes,
On the right side, the cottage.
Cottage?
Yeah.
I put a lot of money into it.
You're still working on the third floor of the main house, though, right? Isn't that part of the question?
The attic, well, it's a finished attic. They wanted to put a sprinkler system in through the entire house or gut the attic. But if the attic, my thing was, when the attic was built, if it's built before 1972, I believe, it's grandfathered in. If it's built after that, it's not grandfathered in. And I had an architect look at it, and he said it should be okay because there's 2 escape routes, there's 2 sets of stairs, there's 20-foot ceilings. And the other thing was, if that wasn't acceptable, could you do a partial sprinkler system in the attic and down the hall, like an escape route sprinkler system?
Taking the table.
It's like a magnet.
So, the inspector, what did the inspector say about that?
The inspector said, well, according to, he was saying he thinks it was built after 1972. I talked to somebody and that helped work on it when he was like 15. He actually did a home inspection. He said he thought it was before 1972, but they both weren't totally sure. So it's probably in the middle somewhere, probably like 1974 maybe. I don't know. I really don't. It's hard to say.
Uh-huh.
There doesn't seem to be any documentation. And I tried to get in touch with the daughter who we bought the house from, and she won't. Even when we bought the house, she was only to be communicated with her through email, through the realtor. We weren't allowed to ask any questions, anything.
Now, the issue with the attic, is it in front of us or on? No.
No, it's a building department.
The building, right, so that's not, doesn't have anything to do with us. We are only here for these 3 variances,
For
right?
these 3 area variances and the expansion of a non-conforming structure by additions to it. They took a prior non-conforming structure and increased its size.
But that, and again, just like remind this, because this has been for a couple sessions. That was something that happened before
Before they bought it.
they
It's
bought
about
it. So
40 years ago.
there was, this came. I mean, I may be wrong on this, but came before the zoning board a while ago. That got granted, but nothing got carried through, I guess.
Lou Ciotta was the superintendent of the school, Montgomery School System, and he tragically died on vacation. And everything got willed to his daughter. He only had one daughter. And when she got the house and whatever, she was finding out about all these problems because she wanted to sell it. And the more she was living in Louisiana also, so the more problems and the violations and stuff like that, she kind of threw her hands up. She didn't want to deal with it. She tried to get a variance. She got approved, and then it expired. Then she got another variance approved, and then the building inspector said he wanted this done, that done, and finally, I think she threw the towel in. So when we got it, it was abandoned for 4 years. It was a mess. So, and we didn't think it was going to be this much of a problem. We just thought, they're just like, just renew it, $200 fee. And I'm like, okay. And then it was the building inspector thing with the attic, and then it turned out to be a lot more than we thought. There was 70 plumbing breaks, and needed all the electrical, and needed a roof, and on and on and on and on. So we definitely bit off more than we could chew. And so that's why it came up, because she was trying to sell the house after he died. He was probably thinking he'd live there forever. Probably didn't expect to die on a beach in Jamaica, that's for sure. So.
Yeah, okay. So I remember from last time, we were also looking at this survey to make sure that we concurred that nothing else had been added on to since that time. Because we just,
Yeah.
The attorney who was in front of us before said nothing's been done since then. That was the only work that was done to expand it.
From what
And
I can
we
tell.
didn't have any basis to say, yes, we agree or we don't.
Yeah.
And that's why we wanted this survey. And I guess we were trying to compare it to an older survey to just say, yep, okay, the footprint's the same.
Right.
That's really
Only
what
thing
we're
I've
looking
done
at.
is fix things that were already existing.
Right.
Piece of drywall, paint, existing roof. I didn't add and as far as I can see, it was abandoned for 4 to 5 years, and before that, it looked like everything is pretty old. Like the decks, the siding,
Mhm.
pavement.
Is this your primary residence?
Yes.
So Ronald, what are the three variances in front of us?
It appears to be a side yard variance to allow 27 feet where the code requires 30. Also another side yard variance to allow 6.2 feet where the code requires 30. And the third one being a front yard area variance to allow 46.2 feet where the code requires 50. And also another variance to allow the expansion of a non-conforming structure by the additions as shown on the survey.
What are the additions? Which part were the additions put on?
They're not shown on the survey.
I don't know. They said they extended the cottage at one point. I was trying to figure out what they did, and it seems to me when we put the roof on it, there's like a roof. Part of the roof was two roofs, and they don't meet. So it might have been that part, which is about another, let's say 6 feet. If that was, I don't know. There's no records of it. I'm just assuming that's where they did it. Especially if it's encroaching on the side yard that much.
And that piece is on the right side of the house.
Facing it on the right side. I'm guessing again. I don't know. Because the roof was all this, the roof I replaced was all the same age and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm just assuming that because they kept saying the extension on it. I'm like, really? This is an extension? This doesn't look like an extension. You know what I mean? It just opened up the room a little further. If you looked in from the inside out, it's just that maybe the room was bigger. But there's nothing like another room added on or like a deck that's been covered. So, like I said, I'm guessing about that. But all the materials look the same.
It would help the board answer the question if we knew what the dimension was on the survey that you've presented for the house.
There should be another one that we gave you that had all the dimensions of each of the houses and all the floors originally. That not in there.
The 2012 variance says that the structure was increased unlawfully from 32 feet by 36 to 47 feet 2 inches by 48 feet 6 inches.
2012 is extended?
That's the 2012 variance that recites what the increase in size was.
2012 variance. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
The problem is that the survey you've given us doesn't show the dimension of what's there now, so the board's inquiry about...
So you need something that shows originally what they extended it from, and how would I get that?
No, how big is the house now?
The cottage? It's
Yeah.
960 square feet, I think.
Yeah, so I just have some notes from a couple meetings ago that a lot of that work, those expansions, I mean, that's what we were trying to determine, that those were actually done in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Right. So this is trying to retroactively get these.
Right, trying to figure out what they
Right,
did.
right.
And, if you look at the house, my best guess would be that they went out to the side that you're talking about, towards the
To the property line.
encroaching even further.
You got something there. This is the three-story house. Right?
So if it was initially a non-conforming
It's not the-
structure,
there's the cottage.
is there a time frame?
Cottage. You got it here. Yeah.
Is there a time frame that you know, where the zoning didn't apply, like prior to 1970, prior to 1960 or so? I'm just trying to understand. It sounds like the cottage was made more non-conforming. It was originally
It's an
non-conforming.
incredible thing, because apparently the old building inspector lived 5 houses down from this house. So a 3-story extension was built and an entire house was built, and nobody knew saw anything.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was this involved. When I was bought the house, you know, they told us there was problems. We went and found them out, and they just seemed like, oh, we can resolve this. And there's just, you know, every page you lift up, it was just another problem in the house with this, and it just became really, really difficult. Really a lot of money.
What's the zoning of this lot? Is it all, right, I mean, is another issue that there's multiple dwellings on one lot? Is that what they mean by taking a non-conforming structure and making it more non-conforming?
I think it was just the dimensions of it, and it was,
The place where it was put in the first spot
yeah.
was non-conforming.
It was 28 by 28. At that time, it didn't meet the offsets, the setbacks.
I
Somehow they knew it was. This is what's getting me. This write-up says it was originally. I think this is based on what the building inspector said, but this isn't his letter. It says it was previously non-conforming cottage was 28 by 28. So somehow we had that dimension, and now it says it's now overall 29 feet 5 inches by 35. So somehow we knew it was 28 by 28, and now it's expanded to 29 5 inches by 35. So that came from somewhere. I don't know if it was from old records.
But I guess the whole house was built in the setback. That's why it was non-conforming. That's what I think.
Right. It was 28 by 28, and that 28 by 28 house
Is in the 30
it
feet.
was needed variances, and it didn't have them. And now it got bigger, so that means it violates it by even more. I think that's what
He's
it's
saying,
saying.
how did this person get that original 28 feet
Right,
from?
That's
How do we
right.
know
That's why I
that?
was wondering: is
Yes.
there some time frame, in
If
the
we
early
would not-
'70s where the zoning
When it
was different?
built, it would be easier, but because we don't know when it was built. The original house, you do know what was built.
Well,
in
the original structure was built in 1860. And then
How do you know that? Is there
It said on this, the deed.
and the deed? Oh. And nothing in the deed for the cottage?
Well, yeah, it's on there, but it was circa 1970 something, or it was. It's not.
No detail on that?
No, hold on, I'm getting confused. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I just know I remember seeing 1860. I guess it was on the deed, original construction. I don't know where I saw the cottage years. It could have been on something else besides the deed. But that was my understanding, that this was the first house in the whole area. It was like the original farmhouse, I guess. And then there's another one that was built in the 1870s.
Is there someone living in that cottage currently as well?
Just got it so it was rentable. So it passed all the. It had a bad roof. We put a new roof, and it had some planks missing in the deck. We needed all new appliances, flooring.
Still, you're still in the public hearing.
Just trying to see if we had any of the building inspector letters on this, if they spelled it out.
There isn't anything. Mr. Cameron, the problem the board is having is that they expected the survey that you've brought in to show the dimensions of the house and the cottage
Yeah.
as they now exist. And it doesn't do that. And so the board cannot determine the extent of the increase in the size of the non-conforming structures. That's number one.
Okay, let's go for number one again. You need the dimensions of the cottage.
And the house.
Inside the house?
And the garage.
The outside dimensions of the house and the outside dimensions of the cottage.
Okay.
In the absence of that, they cannot determine the extent of the increase in the non-conforming structure, which at the time, in 2012, was the main house. The 2012 decision by the zoning board makes reference to the house prior to that time being 32 by 36, and at that time it had been increased to 47 feet 2 inches by 48 feet 6 inches. Just looking at the floor plan that you've drawn us, I see it being 46 by 39, which doesn't jive at all with what the zoning board
This is the big
found.
house.
Yes, that's from the floor plan that you gave us. It doesn't jive at all with what the zoning board said was there in 2012. So either the structure's been reduced in size or your floor plan isn't correct, but this board has no way of finding out.
Okay. So you want the, basically all the dimensions of both houses, inside and out,
Yeah, now, and
currently?
if there's a way to, within that, show what was there in 2012. If they're the same, the map should say that. If it's been expanded or decreased in size, you should show what was there in 2012.
Okay, so 2012, meaning that the one you have in your hand right there?
You gave us a variance decision of this board from 2012 as part of your application.
Based on the variance decision of 2012.
Yeah.
What were the dimensions, Rob?
That variance decision says at that time that it was, prior to that time, it was 32 feet by 36 feet, and it had been increased to 47 feet 2 inches by 48 feet 6 inches. That doesn't comply with the floor plan that's being shown to you as part of the application process now.
47 by 2 by what?
48 feet 6 inches.
And does it describe the dimensions of the cottage?
The cottage wasn't an issue before the board at that time. It was just the main house.
It's just the main house, okay.
The cottage is now before you because of the side yard encroachment.
Yeah, I saw something later about a 28
So
by 28.
it wasn't before the ZBA at that time? It was in existence?
No, it was. At that time, the side yard setbacks were too small for the right rear cottage. The applicant sought a 22-foot 6-inch variance for the side yard setback.
Well, this is at 7.6, 22 plus 6.
That number is going to change because it's now 6.2 feet closer, so whatever that math comes out to. $25 feet 8 inches. 22. 24. Yeah, it would be a 24-foot 8-inch variance is being sought now.
23.
Assuming it
23.8.
requires 30?
You're right, 23.8. Sorry,
23.8.
23.8.
That it requires 30 normally, right?
Yes. Yes, we're presuming it requires 30.
No. The right side of it.
Yeah.
On the same line, just add 23.8.
Yeah, I got 23.10, no? 23 feet 10 inches.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, 23 feet 10 inches on that one.
And then that's 3 feet.
50 is minus 46 is it 3 feet? What do you think?
10.
10. And then this one 3 feet.
Probably.
Got it?
What were the calculations, Jeff?
All right, so on the, just with the main house, side yard is 27 feet. He requires 30. That's a 3-foot variance.
Yep.
Staying with the main house, the setback is 46.2 feet. 50 is required. That's a 3-foot, 10-inch variance. And the third one is on the cottage. It's 6.2 feet from the boundary line. 30 feet is required. That's a 23-foot, 10-inch variance.
And so, in that original, in the 2012 documents, does it say what are the variances?
Yeah,
being sought?
on the
Did they
right
mention-
rear cottage, at that time, he sought a 22-foot 6-inch variance. He's now seeking a 23 10-inch variance. I think the explanation is that
the rule for-
the board was working on that 7.6-foot front corner of the house
Right.
dimension instead of the 6.2.
Right, the math worked to that exact number.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, was that an extension? You know, was there that bump out, which made it that 6.2 after 2012? And the variances match on the main structure?
The board did not deal with the yard requirements for the front structure at the time. I don't know what the explanation for that is. They may have been pre-existing at the time, and the expansion of that house from its non-conforming state to its continued non-conforming state might have not been adjusted. It may have been pre-existing yards, I don't know. But it does not appear to have been addressed by the board at that time.
So again, the variance being sought at this time are the setback variances for the cottage, one, right?
Yes.
What are the other two that I'm
Front yard for the main house, side yard for the main house, and the expansion of a non-conforming structure.
3 feet.
Right, 3 feet.
The expansion of non-conforming structure is a different variance.
Yes.
That's
It's a different variance.
a fourth thing for itself.
Yes.
So the measurements, either way, the setback is 6.2 as of right now. Am I
That's what
correct?
the survey says.
So we just want to know what happened between now and 2012, if anybody did anything,
Yes.
if I can find anything. Okay. But that doesn't change the setback of 6.2 either way. We just
Yeah, if
wanna
that's a
see-
hard number,
We
that's,
just want to see what's going
See
on.
this?
Yeah,
And that's what created 6.2.
It's not showing it here.
Not showing it
It's
there.
not shown here, but it's shown on the survey.
So probably that created the. Because
This is now, and this is current. This is his ownership. This is what's supposedly there now. But this is also from the assessor's records. This isn't the
Actually.
applicant's records. These are the assessor records. So it could be an error. That's why you need to get them on here to see. You know, this may be, these are the assessor's records. So
Okay.
whether they're right or wrong.
But the land survey is from what he sees outside on the street.
Yeah. And that could be a patio. It's not labeled, so if it's a patio.
That little thing right there,
Yeah.
that little rectangle, that's where the oil tank is, it's a covered oil tank. They just kind of put some 4x4s there, put some plywood and siding to match the house. It's just. It's where the oil
thing
tank
that, it says concrete block covered pit, that,
No.
Right.
On the right side of that
That's
cottage.
a well.
okay. Oh, that, okay, gotcha.
Over by the cottage, you see a little rectangle
Yeah.
next to the 6.2? That's about 5 feet high. And this, you lift it up and the oil tank is in there. Comes out about 2.5 feet, I'd say.
Well,
That's
probably
what's
one-
causing now the
It's
problems.
not- It's like semi-structural and it's just not into the ground.
So it should be stated because this makes it.
That's-
I think that's the point where it gets 6.2.
Right, because they're measuring from that versus the actual structure.
Oh, they're measuring from the corner of that.
Yeah, that's why it's different. Because it was straight 7.6.
That's
all
actually
the way
closer,
down.
you're right.
So maybe the surveyor put that 6.2 from the edge of that
Gotcha.
covering.
Well, that whole thing is, that whole.
That's what causes the increase on
Yeah,
that.
this,
Mr. Chairman, my suggestion on this would be to have the applicant do as you've requested this evening, and at the same time send the surveyor to the building department, have the building inspector review it to identify any other variances that he might be aware of that are shown by it. He can review his records and see what they have there with respect to the prior variances, and ultimately, it's going to be his call on any variances that might be granted by this board, so I think it would behoove the applicant and the board to have the building inspector review it.
and then he's got that cover there. Right, okay.
Review the measurements.
I think the building inspector should look at that piece that was done to see if it's good or not.
The oil tank cover
Yeah.
thing? Okay.
You should look at it and let him say his comments about it.
Okay.
And he should. Did the building inspector get this survey?
Do you have one of these? Yes.
He has
I
one.
gave
I know we got a bunch of copies made.
Yeah, they
It was like
brought me
$1,500.
and I gave one to Ben the other day.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just another item of note. Back on the at the September meeting, the applicant indicated that they would provide the records of the tax assessment on this property because the board might remember the prior zoning board had imposed as a condition that the back taxes that would have been charged or payable on this property as improved were to be made. That was a condition of the prior variance. The applicant indicated that they would run that analysis and provide the board with the information. I guess, Mr. Campbell, do you have that with you this evening by any chance?
The additional taxes that should have been paid, it's been, I remember that got brought up. It's been reassessed a couple times. I don't have it with me, but you want it going back prior to when I owned it, or since I've owned it?
There was to have been a payment made at the time of the 2012 variance as it was granted. Apparently that was not fulfilled. So it would be that payment as well as
That's before
any...
I owned it, though.
I don't know. I'm just telling you, from 2012, there was to be a calculation made and a back payment, and a payment made as a condition of the approved variance.
Okay.
That calculation is needed as to what that number was supposed to be, and also I think this board may be of the mind that the same savings that have been recognized by you since then should perhaps be paid as a part of a condition of any variance granted now. And your attorney, who was here last month, indicated that you would run that analysis, because you might be paying those taxes, you might not. Depends on what the assessor's records
Right,
show.
I've talked to the tax guy. Now, if she already got an approval in 2012, and that was a contingency of getting the approval, wouldn't she have had to pay that in 2012 to get the approval?
It was a condition of the approval.
So if she
Apparently
got
they
the
were not
approval-
paid.
If she got the approval, then she would have met that condition. She got the approval.
Apparently the payment was not made.
She didn't make a payment.
Apparently not.
Okay. So if he did already reassess the house and we paid taxes or been charged taxes thereof, just have a statement from the tax assessor's office saying
Yes, that everything is paid up to
everything's
date.
squared up. Okay. So outside dimensions, inside dimensions of the big house and the cottage, what the differences were from the bump out. Have the inspector look at this covering for the oil tank and have him give a review, find out what the setback is, whether it's 30 feet or not, and then get an approval from the tax assessor, see if there's any back taxes owed on the additions,
Yes.
illegal additions.
So we're gonna keep open the public hearing till the next one.
Okay, thank you. We done?
Yes.
Okay.
I make a motion to close the public hearing, adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor?
Aye.